Meditation is something I've always been really curious about. Why do people dedicate their whole lives to practicing it? What sort of secret wisdom can I gain from doing it? Personally, when I think of meditation, I see it as a way to stop and calm thoughts, like slowing down the supercomputer that is our brain. This is exactly what drew me to meditation in the first place. So I decided I wanted to learn. I wanted to meditate for 5 days. Now, when it comes to actually practicing meditation, it seems really simple. You breathe in, breathe out, push away incoming thoughts, and just exist. However, just because it seems simple doesn't mean that it is. So, day one, first thing I needed to do was determine how often and how long I would meditate each day. And after a bit of thinking, I ended up deciding on twice a day for 10 minutes, one in the morning and one at night. Except for day one, where I only did one session, and I don't really remember why, so I'm just calling it a whoopsie. Anyways, I set my timer for 10 minutes and I started. And honestly, my first session was fine. I remember feeling pretty calm afterwards, which I expected. One thing I didn't expect though was that I got really sleepy, like I was this close to just falling asleep. And it slightly concerned me, so I took to the internet for answers. And as far as I could tell, it was a normal thing, so I didn't make a big deal of it. Day two started off with a pretty great session. I remember before I started, I had a lot on my mind, and by the time the 10 minutes was up, it felt like my mind had settled down. Day two also marked my first night session. Now this is where the tiredness I felt from day one came back, but way more. I struggled to stay awake during this session. I constantly felt like I could just tip over and bam, I'd be asleep. Although I would come to learn that doing night sessions in general just made me tired. Day three, I wanted to try something different, so I did a session where I stood up instead of sitting, which seemed like a good idea. Unfortunately, this just made it to where anytime I started to feel a bit calm, my legs would loosen up and I'd have to refocus quickly in order to stop myself from falling. So this was the only time I ever stood during meditation. My night session for day 3 was actually not that bad. The one thing I noticed here was that it was pretty dang hard to keep my thoughts from flowing and going all over the place. Day 4 provided a good and a bad session. My day session was surprisingly productive as I managed to meditate for 20 whole minutes without even noticing. Mainly because my timer didn't go off, but that isn't the point. What stood out to me was that if I was in the mood for meditation, time would go by quicker. However, when I wasn't, time felt like it stood still. Now, part of the issue of the night session for day 4 was that I was really tired, and for some reason, I wanted to meditate before going to bed. But I swear, this felt like the longest 10 minutes ever. You know that feeling as a kid when you get put in timeout in the corner and they're like, alright, you need to wait 5 minutes until you can come back. And that 5 minutes feels like an eternity. That's kind of what this felt like. So, for my last day, day 5, I decided to do a 30-minute session instead of a day and a night session. Mainly because the night sessions weren't proving to be very productive. Now, for some reason, I also wound up getting sleepy during this, even though it was the middle of the day. By the time my 30 minutes was up, I wanted to just lie down and take a nap. On top of that, I struggled to control my thoughts. They were moving around a lot and I kept getting on all these little thought tangents. And once my session was finished, I was officially done with the 5 days. So, did I learn to meditate? Yeah, but I don't think it's hard to learn. I think it's hard to master. I also feel like it's more of a mental thing rather than a physical thing, because the physical steps are really simple, but the mental steps are hard and it's not necessarily as straightforward for every person. Would I recommend this to viewers? Honestly, I think I'd lean towards no here. I didn't really find that 5 days felt like enough time to truly understand meditation, as I think it's more of a long-term investment rather than a short-term one. But there are definitely no negatives involved, so if you're curious about it, I'd say give it a whirl. Overall, I'd say this wasn't as useful or insightful as I first thought it would be. There weren't any magic wisdom nuggets that I felt I got after doing it. I think meditation made me tired more than anything else. And yes, it was nice to sit with my thoughts and just exist, but I'm already a pretty reflective person, so I tend to do this quite often anyway. And yeah, that about wraps this up. If you have any ideas for what I should try next, leave them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing so you don't miss future ones. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.